Hey there, darlings. Welcome to the Farmer's Table. My name is Jess if you are new here, and if you're not new here, welcome back. I have a lot of cucumbers on my hands, as you may see here. I actually harvested 65 pounds of cucumbers out of my garden yesterday. More than that. It was over 65 pounds because 65 is what I weighed inside my house between a couple of harvests yesterday. And there were some that were really large that I threw to my animals. So, wow, what a good problem to have if you like cucumbers. If you don't, this would be a nightmare. I am going to take the next day or two working on these. I'm not going to be able to get this all done in one sitting because some of the things I'm doing require some time, but I'm hoping and challenging myself to preserve all of these guys. If you are curious about the varieties, this really big bag here, this is called Silver Slicer. It's my favorite cucumber. I've grown it for a long time. I live in South Carolina, so it is hot here and it does really well in the heat. It has a really thin white skin. It looks lighter green when it's small. The bigger it gets, the more white it looks. But you can pick these small and use them like a pickling cucumber, or you can let them get larger and use them like a slicer. And even when they do get large, they still do pretty good. And the applications, like I'll show you what I'm going to be using them for. Here I just have like a little like Boston pickling cucumber, and then this is called an Armenian long white cucumber. Technically this is a melon. It's not a true cucumber, but it can be used interchangeably. So I'm throwing them all together. Today we're making a few different recipes. We're just going to be multitasking. The first thing we're doing is making cucumber kimchi. We are also going to be making some sweet pickle relish, and I'm going to be prepping some cucumbers to go in my freeze dryer. I actually started this last night. I got some of the cucumbers prepped, and I did 1.5 gallon batch of the cucumber kimchi because I've never made this before. I've eaten it from multiple places, and I know that I like cucumber kimchi, but I wasn't 100% sure how I wanted to go about it. So I read like 15 different recipes online, and I settled on this, put this together, and I've actually made a couple of changes since I did this last night that I want to do a little bit differently today. So the first thing we need to do is get these cucumbers salting. When you are making anything with cucumbers, you have to keep in mind the fact that they are mostly water. I mean, I think a cucumber is like 80-something% water. And that being the case, if you were to mix your recipes all together without accounting for all of that water, you would end up with really watery brines with diluted flavor, and your cucumbers, whatever you make out of them, would be more likely to get soggy. So we need to salt them to start. Now, I've got most of my cucumbers chopped here for the kimchi, but I started with 4 pounds per half gallon. With the batch I did last night, I actually just cut them up and I left all of the seeds in. Younger cucumbers, the seeds are small and they're not mature, so they're soft. You don't have to take them out. But as I was cutting, a lot of the cucumbers I'm using have gotten a little on the larger side, and I was just looking at this and seeing all the seeds and thinking it might be worth going ahead and going through the extra step of taking them out. That's just going to come down to your preference. Having less water content is going to make it crunchier, and I think by taking the seeds out, I'm going to end up with a crunchier kimchi. Now, if you have cucumber kimchi out, it's most common to use those long, skinny green cucumbers, and those are not being de-seeded before they're used. So you can just assess the cucumbers you're working with. Obviously, I'm just using what I've got here because there's no way I'm going to go buy a long, skinny green cucumber when I have all of these growing out of my garden. And by taking the seeds out and cutting them down, I'm ending up with very similar bite-sized, crisp, solid bits. I do like to leave the skins on for this recipe because it is going to help these cucumbers hold their texture. So I'm just holding these cucumbers over a bowl and scooping all of the seeds out. I don't have to be super meticulous because this is mostly about texture. I don't mind if a few of these immature seeds end up in my end product. One thing you do need to make sure of is that you're starting with clean cucumbers. If I do have any like little weird bits that are shriveled up, have holes in them, that might be harboring bacteria, I will peel stuff off, cut bits out, because with fermentation, we want to make sure that we're not introducing anything that we don't want to be culturing in there. Once you have all of your cucumbers cut up and ready to go, we want to add the salt. It's 3 tablespoons of salt per 4 pounds of cucumbers. So I'm gonna put 6 in here. That is obviously a lot of salt. We're gonna rinse this off after it's done. But this salt removes this water by osmosis, and it's gonna help our cucumbers stay much more crisp on the other end. So just sprinkle the salt over the cukes and then stir so that they're well incorporated with that salt. I just throw a towel over this, leave it on the counter. I'll stop and stir it a couple times. The salting time really comes down to what you are doing with it. You want to give a minimum of like an hour or 2 so that you have plenty of the water out. All right, just give this a nice cover. So while that salt does its thing, we are going to return to my relish. So let me tell you a little bit about this. This is a recipe I got online from Deep South Dish is where this particular one is, but it is an heirloom recipe. There are lots of people who have versions of this. It's called $1 Million Relish, and it's just sweet relish that is cucumbers, bell peppers, and onions, which I have them all prepped right here. This took approximately 1 eternity to cut all of this. I did end up using my food processor for about half of the cucumbers, but I didn't want it to be super small dice. If you want to use a food processor and you don't want it to pulverize to a mash, make sure you pulse it and stop it. You may have to stop it a little on the earlier side. Don't put it in there with it running on because cucumbers will just turn to just pulp in no time. And I like there to be some texture. This is going to cook. We're going to cook it first, then we're going to put it in jars, and we're going to can it. And with all that heat, it is going to break down some. So I like to start with a good bit of dice in here rather than it all being chopped really tiny, because I think it gives it a nicer texture on the back end. I did all of this yesterday evening. This is a triple batch of this recipe. It calls for red and green bell peppers, and I actually used just a mix of what I had available. There's orange and yellow in here, which makes it colorful, so that's fun. But the difference for me with when I'm deciding salting times for something like cucumbers is like here, I let it sit in the salt overnight, and that has created, as you can see, a lot of liquid here. With this, I'm going to be putting this in a brine, and so I want it to be completely, evacuated of all of the water that it had in it so it can soak that brine up, and so that these veggies are going to really take on the flavor of that sweet, spiced, vinegary brine and make relish. With the kimchi, I still would like to maintain a little bit more of the cucumber's flavor. I want that to take on the seasoning of the kimchi, but I'm not going to salt it as long because I really want it to stay really crisp. And if it does let out some more liquid, I'm going to account for that by adding just a little bit of extra seasonings because I want a saucy kimchi. I'm not explaining this to you so that you're worried about doing it wrong. I'm explaining it to you so that if you end up with an end product that you'd like to change, you know how. So the first thing I want to do is start my canner. I'm really bad about not doing that and then getting to the point that I need to get things in and it's not ready. So I always just go ahead and start it and put it on like medium heat to get ready. And then when I know I'm about to start filling my jars, I turn the heat up on high. It just keeps me from having to work circles around myself to do things a little too early, then wait, and then risk doing them a little too late. We're gonna combine all of the ingredients for our brine in here, and then I'm going to rinse my veg and throw them in here. I'm going to start with 3 quarts of ACV for this triple batch. You can also use white vinegar. I just really like apple cider vinegar when I'm doing anything that's sweet. I think that the flavors just go so well together. Now I'm following this recipe pretty exactly because I really like this recipe. It's a good sweet relish. You don't have to follow the recipe exactly. When you're putting this much vinegar and sugar in a recipe, it's going to be safe. You could do this exact recipe and make carrots, or I could just cut up just plain cucumbers and do them this way. If you wanted to sub some of the vegetables out for something else or change the ratios, that's completely fine. I'm about to put 12 cups of sugar in here. And with this much sugar and vinegar, this is what's doing the preserving right here. This is what makes this recipe safe. There are some canning recipes that are tested and need to be tested to make sure that the pH is right and all of that. And there are some that you need to follow more closely to make sure you are staying in the wheelhouse of safe canning. But when it comes to putting this much sugar and vinegar in something, it's fine. It's gonna be fine. I want to bring all of these ingredients to a boil, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat up. I just tore my kitchen apart looking for mustard seed, and I know I am in ownership of mustard seed. Where it is, I do not know. We're just gonna use some ground mustard, it'll be fine. We need, let's see, celery seed, turmeric, red pepper flakes. I'm gonna do some ground mustard. And then I'm going to put in several cloves of fresh garlic. Now we want to bring this to a boil. And we just want to make sure the sugar is all melted and everything is incorporated before we put our vegetables in. While that comes up to heat, I'm going to strain this. I might have to do it in batches because I've got so much going on here. So once you get this into the colander, go ahead and press it and squeeze it and try to get as much of that liquid out as you can. So I just did the amount of salt that this recipe called for, and I let it soak overnight, and it does not taste too salty to me. I don't feel like this needs to be rinsed because I want it to carry some of that salty flavor into that sweet brine to like mellow it out. However, if at this point this does taste like you want it to be a little less salty, you can go ahead and rinse this. You just don't have to. I'm gonna let this sit here and drain just a little bit more. It's dripping out of there, and I'm gonna give it a little bit longer to drain before I add it to my pot. All right, we're boiling here, so we're gonna go ahead and stir in our veggies. So once you reach that boil, you want to stir in your veggies and bring it back up to a boil before dropping the heat down to medium. For this job, I'm going to use my food processor. I have 3 trays here for the freeze dryer. So one of the things that I do to kind of like maximize my freeze dryer and to lessen food waste, where I could just freeze dry things even if I don't have enough to like warrant a whole load, is I keep an extra set of trays. And for instance, the other day I had bought like a big bag of garlic cloves at Costco, and those things just go bad so fast, is why I usually don't buy them. Anyway, I ended up with this big bag. It was starting to get, I could tell they were about to go bad. A few of them had like yucky spots on them. So I just dumped the whole bag on a freeze dryer tray and stuck it in the freezer. I keep space in like a stand-up freezer for this purpose, so that throughout the season, if I have a harvest, let's say that's only a quart of something, I can go ahead and prep it, put it on the freeze dryer tray, and put it in the freezer to wait for me to have enough to run the actual freeze dryer. So I've got 3 trays to fill today, and I am going to shred some cucumbers and put them on this tray and freeze dry them to make tzatziki. I've never done this before, but it was highly suggested whenever I showed my massive cucumber harvest over on my Roots and Refuge channel. A lot of people mentioned this, so I looked it up, and I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is use my food processor with the shredding attachment, get it shredded, and then squeeze some of the liquid out. But I'm not going to try to salt this or anything. I don't actually know how many cucumbers this is going to use up, but I'm hoping it uses quite a few. The idea is on the back end, when you go to mix tzatziki sauce with like yogurt, lemon juice, garlic, you just put the freeze-dried cucumber directly in, and it reconstitutes with the liquid in the yogurt. So I'm excited about that. All right, so I have the shredder attachment. I've got it where I'm going to be shredding it smaller. There's a larger and a smaller, but I'm going to go with thinner pieces. And I cut the ends off these so I don't have any like hard bits of stem, but otherwise I'm not seeding, I'm not peeling, I'm just gonna go with the whole cucumber. And earlier I had mentioned texturing using the food processor. This I can just turn it on and run them through because the shredder's at the top, so it's not gonna be continuing to shred them. Once they go through, they are shredded and they'll be down here. That one's too big. I ran about 8 through. There's a lot of liquid in here, and I'd like to save it. Trying to think of how I want to do this, because this cucumber juice, that's good. It's good for drinking. All right, so I'm just going to put a little strainer over a bowl here and pour this through. I'm just going to gently press on it so that the liquid runs through. I'm not trying to get this like super dry, but just the obvious dripping liquid coming off will mean less work for my freeze dryer to have to do. And then I'm going to take it and spread it out on this tray. It's still really very wet. I can squeeze this out some more. Yeah, I think 80-something% of water is probably accurate on cucumbers. Y'all, check this out. So I didn't even think about this being a byproduct of preserving cucumbers this way. So let me give you just a little few side notes on cucumber juice. Cucumber juice is like water and electrolytes. It's very, very good for you. It's very hydrating for you to drink. So that's why if you get into like juicing, cucumbers are a lot of times the base of a lot of juices because of the hydration that it brings. It does not keep long in the fridge. So if you want to save it, you would want to put it in like ice cube trays and freeze it. But you could use this as a base for like cold cucumber soup. You could freeze it and use it. I mean, you could throw it in smoothies. That's like the thing that's coming to mind. I mean, if you wanted to add some cucumber flavor to something, like if you were making tzatziki, you could add it in there to loosen it up. But my favorite thing to use cucumber juice for is for its cucumber mint lemonade. It's so good. I don't have time to really like detour into that because I have dinner plans that I have to finish this by. As for today, I think I'm just gonna give this a go. It's so good. It's very refreshing. It just tastes like a cucumber. It doesn't taste like very much. Just mildly sweet and very fresh and a little green. And overall, I think that I will feel very good drinking this. However, that was 8 cucumbers that filled one of the trays. So to do this again, I'm going to end up with 2 more quarts, which I will probably just go ahead and freeze that so I can make cucumber lemonade another time. It's better to go ahead and freeze it unless you're going to get to it like within the day, because when you juice veggies, it breaks down a lot of the stuff that's in them and it starts to oxidize. And so if you put it in the fridge, it's going to lose a lot of its freshness and its goodness within that first day. But if you freeze it, it kind of like freezes it in time. So anyway, I'm going to fill these other 2 trays so we can get back to this relish because it is almost time to put it in jars. All right, I got my 3 trays filled. I'm gonna take these out there in just a few and get the freeze dryer going. And then here, I went ahead and got out, I have these little super cube trays for freezing things. They're nice because they're silicone. I don't know if you've ever seen these before, but they're really convenient for saving stuff. You can easily pop these out and then put them in a bag once they're frozen. And I'm gonna stick those in the freezer as well, so that I can have that cucumber mint lemonade at some point soon. Conveniently, my timer just went off, so it's time to address the relish. First though, I need to do like a quick 10-second tidy here because otherwise I'm gonna freak out. There's so much stuff everywhere. I don't mind a mess at all. I come by the nickname Messy Jessie, quite honestly. But when I'm trying to do a job in the kitchen and there's just stuff everywhere, I end up making mistakes because my head is not clear. So it really helps me to just stop and take 3 minutes to like just clear things off, go rinse stuff off. Like cucumber seeds, when those dry on things, they're a heck of a lot harder to get off than if you just rinse them off when they're wet. So here's your reminder to take a second and make your life easier by just cleaning up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna bring this over here so you can have a better camera angle. Clean jars, new lids, canning funnel. I need a slotted spoon and a ladle. And what I'm going to do is first, with the slotted spoon, I'm going to fill all of these jars, leaving like this much head space. Oh shoot. Take a deep breath of that. It's a little spicy. Very vinegary. So I'm going to fill these up first with the solids, and then we'll top them with the brine. By doing the solids first and then topping with the brine, you make sure that your jars are actually full so that you don't get done canning them and have like big space down at the bottom that's just liquid. Y'all, I messed up a little bit. It doesn't really matter. In my mind this morning, I was like, this is a triple batch, so I made a triple batch of brine. This was a double batch. I didn't have enough peppers. I didn't do a triple batch. That's okay. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have way too much brine here, and this happens. Like when I've made cowboy candy in the past, anytime you're making something like this, if you end up with too much brine, that's a lot of sugar and vinegar and spices. I'm not gonna throw that out. Put it in a jar in my fridge, and like later this week when I haul in another big load of cucumbers, I will just heat this back up and make more of this relish, but I just won't have to make the brine. I'll just have to cut up the veggies and salt them. This made 7.5 pint jars, which, yeah, that's a double batch almost. I just finished writing a cookbook. It's not for pre-order yet. Please, if you're excited about it, stay excited about it until the time that it's out. But it was hands down like the hardest thing I've ever made. Like, it just getting all of this right and figuring out the amount and the yield and all of that. And thankfully, I'm working with a wonderful publisher that has recipe testers and stuff, which gave me peace of mind because I was so nervous to like not get these things right and mess people up when they're in the middle of cooking. And I feel very good about it. I put the elbow grease in to get it done well. But it has made me notice things in following online recipes that I never really did before, like yield and stuff like that. I do mostly want to know how much something is going to yield because that's how I know how many jars to prep. That's how it's how you do your math. But sometimes this stuff happens even with tested recipes. Like here, like this is, now I did triple this and I didn't need to, but even with double, it would have been a lot of brine. You can use this for other things though. I asked once what people did with their extra cowboy candy brine, and it was such a trove. People told me that they were cooking it down and reducing it, and then using it to brush on grilled meats. Really cool. Wouldn't have thought to do that. Someone said they use it to make salad dressings. I was like, wow, that's really smart. And what I've always done is you can save it and use it to preserve other things. Like even if you just use it to like make some fridge pickles or something like that. Here you have, in this case, it's got a lot of sugar in it, but even if you were doing a savory brine, you've got all the vinegar, you've got all the spices, and you can always put something else in it and it's gonna taste good. This would be really good on some red onions. I may plan on doing that with some of this because I was just thinking this morning that I need to put some more pickled red onions in the fridge, and I bet this would be a lovely brine for that. Because some recipes don't really give you all the pertinent information. Like they'll tell you 8 cucumbers, but they don't tell you exactly how much you should have once they are like peeled and chopped. It doesn't really bother me because I'm an experienced cook, so I know how to pivot. But I do understand that whenever you're first getting started, it can be very important because you don't know how to anticipate something and you don't know how to read it to know if something is going wrong while you're in the middle of working. Isn't that a pretty relish? And now I'm going to wipe these rims to make sure that there's nothing hindering a seal. Put my lids on and the rings. Alright, I turned this up on high so it is ready to go. These are going in the canner for 15 minutes. Pints are 10 minutes, quarts are 15. Since these are 1.5 pints, I'm just going to err on the longer side. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pour this into jars to keep it. Ooh, this is quite hot. I'm going to put hot water in these jars first to warm them up so this doesn't break them. I don't need to boil it or anything. That would defeat the purpose. These are cold because they were sitting over right by a vent. So if you put very hot liquid or anything in very cold containers, make them burst because thermal expansion. My lovely assistant has come in just in time to be employed for this job. Oh, there's still water in that. Will you pour this in there, please? You need the funnel?
Yeah.
It's right there. What, you don't want to risk it for the biscuit like you do with the milk?
No.
He pours the milk into the jars out in the milk room with the cows.
I don't.
Clear
That will clear your nasal cavities. What am I pouring?
It's the brine from that relish. I mixed too much. I forgot how many batches I had done. So I'm just going to save it and use it to pickle some more stuff with. So I will let these cool off, and then once they're cool, I'll stick them in the fridge. How long does this last? Again, it's sugar and vinegar. Like, this will last a very long time. I could theoretically, no, I did cook veggies in it, so it does have a little bit. Still, it's so much sugar and vinegar. If I use this within the next couple weeks, that would be on the very conservative side of when it needs to be used by. So, and I will, because I've got tons of stuff coming in from the garden. All right, this is done. Go ahead and pull them out. You'll hear the lovely pops start happening soon. I'm really happy with how this turned out. They're so pretty, and it tastes good too. Now for the last step of my day, I need to work on my kimchi. See how much liquid is in here. Oh, unlike with the cucumber juice, this is very salty, so this just gets tossed. I'm gonna strain these and go ahead and rinse them because this does have a little more salt in it than the others. It's still pretty salty, so I'm gonna rinse them off. I have my cucumbers right here, and in my big bowl, I'm going to mix the paste that then I'll put the cucumbers in and we'll stir it all up. So I'm gonna start with my, gosh, I'm gonna say this wrong. It's Korean red pepper flakes. Gochugaru, I'm not 100% sure how you say that properly. And I'll put that in. Fresh garlic. Fresh grated ginger. I will put the written recipe in the show notes so you guys can see the exact amounts. Green onions, fish sauce, and sesame oil. Okay, now we want to mix this up really good. And then we want to stir in our cucumbers. The batch I did last night, I did like cut up carrots also. And I like this with carrots in it too, but I'm running out of time right now. I need to finish this so I can be done with what I'm doing and move on to the next thing. So I'm gonna do just the cucumbers and the green onions here in the seasoning. It'll just give me some variety because I already have half a gallon of it going that has carrots mixed in. So we mix this till everything is covered. Now I meant for this to fill 2 jars. I don't know if it's actually gonna be enough, but we're just going to start putting it in. Let me grab a funnel. So with a lot of ferments, you need to absolutely make sure that there's enough brine like right away. With cucumber kimchi, you only ferment this on the counter for like 12 to 24 hours. You don't want to go much longer than that because it will stop being crisp. Last night when I mixed that batch together, at first it did not look like they were going to have enough liquid to cover them, but after sitting there for about an hour or so, more liquid had seeped out and it ended up being covered in the brine. So I've got a little like muddler thing here. I'm just going to press this in, which is going to help it release more of its liquid and juices. I don't think this is going to fill another half gallon. Honestly, I think that this made such a difference in volume because I took the seeds out of this. I was thinking, gosh, I know I doubled this recipe. Why? Because I'm probably going to fit maybe like a pint jar in addition to this. But all of the seeds and all of the gel, that probably made the difference. So here we have this, you can see. So this is a little fermenting weight, and here I have a lid. Okay, and so this doesn't have a lot of liquid in it right now. As you can see, it's pretty solid, but just within the next hour or two, this is gonna release some liquid. I'm gonna put this weight in, and it just goes right in the top. And what that does is when that liquid is produced, this keeps any of the veggies from floating up to the top. It really doesn't matter as much on a short ferment like cucumber, kimchi, because I'm only gonna let this sit on the counter for 12 to 24 hours. Actually, this one that I did last night, it looked just the same. Do you see how liquidy that is now? Actually, I'm gonna give this just a little bit more space. I'm really bad about overfilling my ferments, and then they overflow onto the counter. Not a lot of space, but just a little bit. Put that weight in, and then this is a fermenting lid. I can link all this stuff so you guys can find it if you don't have to use these specific things. There's lots of options, but this has a little hole in it and it releases the gases. Again, less important on a short ferment like this, but if you're gonna have something sitting here fermenting for 2 weeks, if you don't have a way for the gases to release, your jar will explode. This is the one from last night. Let me see. Get in here. Some of the stuff floated up past the weight anyway. Okay. I did do something a little differently today. Gosh, that's so good. It makes me happy. Oh my God. I had put a teaspoon of sugar in this one, which I saw several people discuss, and I found this just a little on the sweeter side. I left the sugar out on the one that I did today because I didn't feel like that it needed it. If you were not using such fresh cucumbers, maybe that would be a benefit. Whenever you pick things off of the plant, they begin converting their sugars to starch almost immediately. And it's less obvious on certain things that have more sugar, like fruits like cucumbers and tomatoes and stuff like that. Things like sweet peas, it becomes very evident. They don't store very long, and so when you're using veggies that are really, really fresh, a lot of times you do need to keep that in mind because they do have more sugar in them than what you would be used to buying at the store, which is what many recipes are developed off of. So this is yesterday's, this is today's. I'm gonna go ahead and fill up. Probably can fill a pint with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this so you guys can see. This is the one from last night. So it's been less than 24 hours, but like 20. I'm gonna go ahead and put a regular lid on it. And this is going in my fridge. I always write what I made and the date that I made it on the top. This lasts for a very, very long time in the fridge. I've eaten ferments from the back of my fridge that were a year old. And actually one of my goals this year is to make a lot of fermented things, because when I don't have them, I end up buying them. And it's just such a great way to save your garden food when you have a whole lot of it. And it's so many benefits of eating fermented food. So I'm happy to put these in the fridge. This one's gonna go ahead and go in there now. I am out of time. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I made a dent. I did not even get halfway through the cucumbers that I needed to do, but I did make a dent, and I will pick back up with it tomorrow and continue with all the other things the garden gives me for the rest of the season. Thank you for hanging out with me today and all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time.